In the early 2000s, Nintendo was struggling. Each home console they released since the NES kept doing worse and worse. Their newest home console, the GameCube, although technically the most powerful of the generation, was being absolutely crushed in sales by the PlayStation 2, and was even being outsold by the original Xbox, Microsoft's first attempt at a console. This was not a good look for Nintendo, and really made them realize that in order to stand out again like they did in the 80s and early 90s, they needed to go back to their roots. Competing for power and dominance over these new consoles wasn't what Nintendo was about at all. Nintendo's success in the beginning relied on their creativity, their innovation. And in 2006, the world would finally remember what made this company so great in the first place, with the release of the Nintendo Wii. Whether you were a 67-year-old grandparent who had no idea what a Super Mario was, or an 8-year-old kid who just finished a 12-hour Nintendogs marathon, if you were around in this console's heyday, there's a high chance you have at least some experience with this system. And in this video, I want to take a look back at it and see what made it such a perfect console. So, without further ado, my name is Mariomikester, and welcome to a Nintendo Wii retrospective. To fully understand what made the Wii such a monumental console for both Nintendo and the gaming industry as a whole, we have to go back. All the way back to 2001 when the GameCube first hit store shelves. Almost immediately after its release, Nintendo started to begin conceptualizing their next console. And even all the way back in late 2001, the decision to focus more on innovation rather than raw power was a big priority for Nintendo. They knew that there was no way they'd be able to keep up with Sony and now Microsoft. So this focus on innovation was key to this new console's success. And after becoming president of Nintendo in 2002, gaming legend Satoru Iwata was smart enough to realize that Nintendo had been falling behind on industry trends. And appealing to the hardcore gaming audience was the last thing Nintendo needed to be doing. They had to broaden their horizons, make something that could appeal to everyone, not just gamers. So, as development really started picking up in 2003, Iwata met with the leaders of the console's development, and advised them that accessibility needed to be their biggest focus, telling them that even moms should be playing this. And in order to reach this crazy level of accessibility they were aiming for, Iwata suggested that instead of a traditional video game controller, they should design it to mimic an object pretty much everyone knew how to use, a TV remote, and that it used motion sensing technology to simplify the console's interface, and help expand its appeal. Now, this motion sensing idea didn't just come out of nowhere. Inspired by Dance Dance Revolution's unconventional control style, which required players to physically move their body while playing, all the way back in 2001, Nintendo began working with Gyration Inc., a company well known for experimenting with gyroscope and motion sensing based technology. And in close collaboration, prototyped hundreds of different designs for possible motion-based controllers. These prototypes, developed alongside the console, would eventually culminate into becoming the iconic Wiimote we all know and love today. Motion controls weren't the only big idea Nintendo had for the console either. The Nintendo DS had a huge influence on the system's development and design, with at one point Nintendo even considering adding touch controls onto the console's controller, similar to what Sony ended up implementing a decade later on the PS4's controller with its touchpad. This idea was ultimately abandoned, however, in order to avoid redundancy between the two systems. One major idea that wasn't abandoned, though, was backwards compatibility. Since the Wii was being built off the GameCube and more power wasn't really a big focus, a lot of the same internals were used for both systems, which made reading and playing GameCube discs insanely easy on the console. But Nintendo didn't just want to stop there. They wanted this system to be backwards compatible with all of Nintendo's past home consoles, to reduce clutter and again broaden the audience this console appealed to. This idea would eventually become Virtual Console, an online game download service that let players buy and download some of Nintendo's most iconic titles onto the system, from the comfort of their own home. Emulating these games were incredibly easy, as although the Wii wasn't much more powerful than the GameCube, the consoles they were emulating could basically be run on a potato with how much technology had evolved since the 80s and 90s. And at E3 2005, the console was finally shown off to the world. under the clever codename of Revolution. Because as Iwata put it in this reveal,
"You want a revolution? Well, we've got one."
Interestingly, the iconic Wii Remote was oddly omitted from the reveal, as its design was not finalized yet. However, a couple months later in September of 2005, the controller was finally revealed at the Tokyo Game Show, with this cool trailer. And after what felt like an excruciatingly long wait of about a year and a half between reveal and release, the Nintendo Revolution, now known as the Nintendo Wii, was released on November 19th, 2006. Upon booting the console up, you're greeted by one of the most iconic menus in gaming history, the Wii home screen. Remember how earlier I said the Wiimote was designed to mimic a TV remote? Well, this home screen follows that trend, mimicking a TV's menu with the different applications being channels that you interact with, simply by just pointing the remote at what you want to select and selecting it. There is so much I love about this home screen. The simplicity in its design, the accessibility that comes with just simply pointing around, and the music. Oh my god, the ambient music that accompanies this menu is amazing. It's so difficult to go back to the bland, mute, and utter lack of theme that both the Switch 1 and Switch 2's menus have, when the Wii nailed it so perfectly. When I was younger, sometimes if I was bored or just needed to relax, I would sit on this menu for as long as I wanted, watching the little channel animations, listening to the music, and just appreciating the vibes. But looking at this menu, it's pretty easy to tell that the Wii wasn't just a game console. It was a hub for entertainment, news, and if you lived in Japan, a place to order pizza. You had the news channel that would keep you updated on current events, the forecast channel that would show you when it was gonna rain so you knew you could stay in on your Wii all day, and the Nintendo channel that would show you sneak peeks at new games and exclusive trailers. Looking back at these apps today, they may seem kind of cool, but ultimately pointless, as these are all things you can easily check on your phone. But back when this console released, this was kind of a game changer. The Wii released in that weird point in time where almost everyone had internet, but modern phones like the iPhone weren't a thing yet. So being able to check stuff like this on a game console, especially one as accessible as the Wii, really helped broaden its appeal. As with internet connectivity and access to these apps, it wasn't just a video game console. It was a whole home entertainment machine. I remember growing up, the Wii was one of the only pieces of technology I had. So these channels were incredibly useful to me. The Nintendo channel is how I found out about Super Mario Galaxy 2, and eventually that the Wii U was even a thing. I remember constantly replaying the new Super Mario Bros. U trailer on my dinky CRT in my room, and just wishing I could play it. The Wii menu also had other fun things like the Wii message board, which would send you stuff like your daily playtime or even cute little letters with pictures in them when you beat a game. You could even send messages to friends here, as well as write memos. I have a friend who told me they used to use the Wii message board as a journal, and they would write updates on cool things happening in their life or stuff they did. And little things like that really drive home why the Wii is such a special console to so many people. But looking at the forecast and writing journal entries wasn't the only thing you could do if you weren't playing a game. You could also make Miis. Miis were one of the Wii's biggest marketing points. They're simple little characters you could design to look exactly like you and your family, that you could plop and select games to play as or compete against them. The interface for creating the Miis is absolutely genius, allowing players to either pick from a group of lookalike Miis to work off of, or just simply starting from scratch and building your character from there. The pure simplicity and accessibility of the Mii Maker made it something everyone loved. Children, parents, and grandparents alike could bond over recreating each other's faces and playing against them in games that supported it, and it added so much personality to the console. Having your own little avatar that worked in a multitude of games was amazing. And it's something Nintendo has kept around to this day because of how much people love it. The success of games that came after the Wii like Tomodachi Life and Miitopia was entirely reliant on the Mii characters and their simple but cute designs. And although by modern avatar creation design standards, the Mii Maker is very bare bones, that's what makes it so appealing. I can't tell you how many times I've been overwhelmed by insanely complex character creators that just make me want to completely skip them. The Mii Maker avoids this issue by being extremely simple. It's not meant to be a one-to-one caricature. The lack of options is what makes it unique and accessible. Even with the limited options though, people got really creative really quickly. Seeing Miis that resemble Dr. Eggman, Darth Vader, Steve Harvey, and a literal cheeseburger goes to show that simplicity doesn't mean boring. As a kid though, I wasn't nearly talented enough at the Mii Maker to make stuff like that, and I and many others often used the Mii channel to make absolute abominations that should never see the light of day again. Well, except for Pubert. You can see Pubert. Now, although the Wii had so much to do and so many built-in apps to explore, if you picked up one of these at launch, you probably wanted to see what this weird TV remote controller thing could actually do, outside of making Peter Griffins. You know, a proper showcase of this revolution Nintendo claimed the system to be. Luckily, if you rooted around in the box your Wii came in, you'd notice a small sleeve with a disc in it. And this last-minute pack-in disc would be one of the keys to the Wii's success. And to this day remains easily the best console demonstration game of all time. A game that not only captivated seasoned gamers, but also drew in new ones who would have never touched a video game otherwise. Wii Sports. It's hard to think of the Wii without Wii Sports immediately jumping to mind as well. This game did such a good job at showcasing the capabilities of the Wiimote in such a fun and engaging way that many people bought a Wii just for this game and only ever played this game. The controls were as simple as possible, and the sports they chose were the perfect fit for the controller's unique capabilities. Swinging your tennis racket and baseball bat in tennis and baseball, throwing punches in boxing, rolling the ball down the lane in bowling, lining up the perfect shot in golf. These were sports pretty much everyone knew how to play. And the simplicity of the Wii's motion controls made it so easy to hand the controller to literally anyone in the room, and they would have it figured out in seconds instead of having to ask what the L3 button was and why they had to press it. I can't imagine a world where this game wasn't packed in with the Wii, because it seems like such a no-brainer idea. But we were honestly really close to that reality. You see, in the months leading up to the console's release, Nintendo had planned to release Wii Sports as a standalone title you would have had to buy separately on launch. However, Nintendo of America president at the time, Reggie Fils-Aimé, was not happy with this idea, as he believed Wii Sports to be the perfect pack-in title for the system, and fought for weeks with Nintendo of Japan to make it happen, even angering Miyamoto in the process, who told Reggie he didn't understand the challenges of making video games, and that Nintendo does not give their software away for free. However, Iwata, on the other hand, became very convinced of Wii Sports being the key to the Wii's success, after Reggie's constant and passionate fighting for it. So, only just weeks before the Wii had begun to ship off to stores, Wii Sports was slipped in that iconic sleeve. Although it may have been the only game some people played, Wii Sports was definitely not the only game you could play on the system. One of the defining factors that makes this console so special to so many people is its spectacular library of games. Super Mario Galaxy, Mario Kart Wii, Sonic Colors, Donkey Kong Country Returns, Wii Sports Resort, and so many other iconic titles help make up one of the best console libraries of all time. And even though motion controls were a big part of the system, with some games like Skyward Sword and of course Wii Sports being entirely dependent on them, you also had games like Super Mario Galaxy 1 and 2 that used the motion controls sparingly and gave good reasons for it. Or games like Super Smash Bros. Brawl that barely included them at all. I think one of the best and definitely most iconic uses for motion control on the Wii that wasn't forced has to be Mario Kart Wii. If you were a more seasoned gamer that didn't care for gimmicks, Mario Kart Wii offered control options like the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, Classic Controller, and GameCube controller that used no motion controls at all. However, for those who wanted to get more immersed in the experience, you could also hold the Wii Remote sideways and control it that way, using the gyroscope inside the controller to physically steer your kart. Nintendo even bundled some releases of Mario Kart Wii with these plastic steering wheel molds that you could put your Wiimote in and immerse yourself even more in the experience. To this day, this is my preferred way to play. Plopping the Wiimote in the Wii wheel and driving around the tracks as if I'm actually steering the carts brings me back to when I would come home from school and be on this game for hours on end. Another game I loved playing with the sideways Wiimote was New Super Mario Bros. Wii. Although this game didn't do much with the motion controls, merely allowing you to do a quick spin in the air if you shook it, the form factor of this controller sideways is super reminiscent of the NES's controller, and I think that's what they were going for here. Playing a 2D Mario game with the NES reminiscent controller was always super cool to me. It felt like I was experiencing a modern Mario 3, which is basically what the new Super Mario Bros. Games are. Some GameCube games were also repacked and re-released on the Wii under the new Play Control series of games. These added widescreen support, patched up some bugs, but most importantly, added motion controls. Games like Pikmin 1 and 2 now allowed you to point and click where you wanted to send your Pikmin, making gameplay so much smoother. Mario Power Tennis was given Wii Sports S swing controls, allowing you to immerse yourself in the experience. And Metroid Prime 1 and 2 allowed you to aim by pointing the Wii remote. New Play Control was a pretty short-lived line of games, but it was cool to see these games given new life with the Wii's motion controls, and is something I never really hear people talk about anymore. One thing people will never stop talking about though is the Wii Shop channel. And for good reason. Not only does it have one of Nintendo's most iconic and funky themes to date, it was also the home for hundreds of retro consoles under the clever name of Virtual Console. Virtual Console launched alongside the Wii and was Nintendo's answer to full-on backwards compatibility. Obviously, there was no way to play these games with physical cartridges on the Wii, but since the console was able to connect to the internet and had a good bit of internal storage for the time, buying and downloading these games was an incredibly easy and legal way to experience the games that shaped Nintendo. On launch, the selection of games wasn't huge, but every Wednesday more titles would be added and gave incentive for people to constantly check the shop every week to see what was added. I mean, you had games like Super Mario RPG, Sonic the Hedgehog, Donkey Kong 3, Adventures of Lolo 1 and 2, King's Knight, Dig Dug, Chew Man Fu. There were so many games on here, and eventually it evolved from just Nintendo consoles to include other classic systems like the TurboGrafx and Sega Genesis. The Wii, alongside everything else it had going for it, was also a hub for retro games. And I wouldn't be surprised if a good amount of people bought the system just to experience these classics in such an easy way. Although I was far too young to remember the Virtual Console's heyday on Wii apart from fleeting memories, it must have been so cool to be around for those weekly updates and just constantly wondering what will be added next. The emulation quality on Wii was also spectacular. It's kind of funny that Nintendo's emulation has gotten worse in some ways as time goes on. I mean, there's still a lot of people out there who still play the games they got on their Wii's Virtual Console on their Wii because they prefer how it looks. The way you bought games on the Wii Shop channel though was through Wii Points. One Wii Point is equivalent to 1 cent, and Nintendo sold these cards you could buy at stores that would add the points to your account. But you could also add points to your account from the comfort of your own home using a credit card. Receiving a Wii Points card as a gift for a holiday or your birthday is like the modern day equivalent of getting a V-Bucks card. I remember spending so long just surfing the Wii Shop channel after getting one of these cards, only to end up buying some random game because I didn't know what to get. If you grew up in the early 2000s, hell, if you were just alive at all when this thing came out, there's a high chance you not only played this system, but also hold a lot of good memories with it. Nintendo was not in the best place when they started working on the Wii. They were falling behind, becoming something they weren't. But the Wii helped them get back on their feet and remember who they really were: innovators. The codename of Revolution may initially come off as a bit egotistical of Nintendo, but they were absolutely right to call it that. The Wii not only changed the gaming industry in a multitude of ways, it introduced millions of people who would have never touched a game console in their life to the world of gaming. Packing Wii Sports in last second was a defining factor to this console's success, and I don't think Nintendo can ever thank Reggie enough for convincing them to do that. And although the motion control fad that the Wii created may have died out, its influence can still be seen to this day with the Joy-Cons essentially being a modern day Wiimote. The library of this system will forever go down as one of the best in gaming history. You can't go wrong with some of the big hitters here. It's pretty weird to think that the system that defined my childhood is starting to be seen as a retro console, but as long as I'm around, I will always defend this system and hold so many fond memories with it. Whether it be throwing my friends into lava in New Super Mario Bros. Wii, accidentally throwing my Wii remote into the wall on Wii Sports because I forgot to put the strap on, real ones didn't wear it, or just relaxing on the home menu while I watch the little animations play, this console will always hold a special place in my heart. It's a testament to the fact that power doesn't mean anything. It's what you do with that power that actually means something. Despite being the most underpowered of its generation by a huge margin, it still became the best-selling console of its generation, selling over 100 million units worldwide. So if I could give one word to describe what made the Wii so perfect, it would be innovation. Innovation in the face of adversity. That's what made the Wii so perfect.